Iron Rhodes?
We don't know who her parents are.
And who are her children?
Nellie Hungry, and then there was two other ones.
But are
Nellie Hungry is Bill and my mom's grandma,
okay.
and she was Iron Rhodes' daughter.
And then who is her child?
Evelyn and Martha.
I thought it was her grandchild. So it goes Iron Road, Nellie,
Evelyn,
Oh, okay.
and then Bill,
And then Bill.
and then Cynthia, and then you.
Okay.
So that's your direct lineage: is you, Cynthia, Bill, Evelyn, Nellie, Iron Road. So they named her Iron Road because they found her along the railroad tracks. Which the significance of naming sometimes is, they use that to determine, or not determine, but like sometimes the circumstances around a situation would have determined somebody's name at a second part or third part of their life, in kind of,
I'm so jealous. I'm sending him a picture right now.
But she had her name her whole life.
I don't think her name was Iron Road when she was younger.
Oh.
And I don't know if she ever told my grandma what her name was before that.
So that's how it was supposed to be last time we tumbled too much.
She ran at Wounded Knee and ended up surviving and going to Rosebud. And then that's where she kind of settled. And that was around the time when they were still putting people on reservations. So she just stayed there, even though she was traveling with Bigfoot. She wouldn't have even been Rosebud, like Si Chungu. She would have been, I think they were Two Kettle Band that was traveling with Bigfoot down to the agency in Pine Ridge because he was going to have a council with the Red Cloud. And so a lot of his followers came with him because he was dying of pneumonia.
It's so easy.
Anyway, I mean, not dying. He was sick with pneumonia, and so his people came with him, and so they would travel that way, and they all traveled down, and then they were camped along Wounded Knee when the massacre had happened, and her parents were killed, but her and I'm pretty sure I think it was her uncle. His name was William Black Thunder. He also ran, and then I don't know how they ended up meeting back up in Rosebud, but she ended up going to Rosebud. So they must have had relatives there. Some way, somehow, there must have been an intermarriage or something, and so they must have went to settle there with relatives. And then that's how Rosebud became where Evelyn was from. Definitely unique.
Yeah, she was different. She was real. She had some good stories. She had a memory of the wind whistling. She said one time she woke up from a nap and nobody was there but her and her grandma, not Grandma Arnold, the other one. And she said she was crying because everybody was gone. And she said her grandma picked her up and was carrying her, and they walked around the house, and when they went around this one side of the house, the wind was blowing in the window and whistling. And she said every time she hears that sound, she remembers that. She remembers Grandma carrying her, comforting her. And she said, I think I cried till I fell back to sleep. And she said when I woke up, they were all home. She was just a sweet little girl. She was so... She said, I think I was a crybaby. When she told me that story, I was like, Grandma, you were just lonesome. I think I was a crybaby, she said. My goodness. But her grandpa, Black Thunder, he would sit up on that hill every night. And he would, when it was time to eat, they would send her up to get him. And she said he would never come down until she got to the top.
Make her climb.
He would sit on that hill and he would watch her come. You could see her all the way. And she said no matter what, I would say, wave at him to come, and she said he'd just sit there. because he was up there praying. He went up there and prayed a lot. And so she said, it never failed. I had to walk all the way to the top to get him.
He's the one in the headdress in the picture.
Yeah,
That's
William Black
Black
Thunder.
Thunder. And he was a medicine person, a healer. And he ran from Wounded Knee too, right?
Huh?
Did he run from Wounded Knee too? I can't remember.
Yeah.
He did, and
did.
I don't think they ran together because
No.
they fled.
And Ruby, our cousin from Ruby, she's the one that told me that they started calling her Iron Road because she walked on that railroad to get back to White River. So whoever picked him up in that wagon,
But I wonder why she would be getting back to White River. I wonder if they were from Rosebud then. But I wonder why she was getting back. I wonder why they were going that way.
they were getting back because whenever they ran from the gunfire, and that guy and those two women hid her, they found this wagon on the third day. They found this wagon that was headed that way. And what I think it must have been headed, close to the railroad somehow. And then she walked on the railroad to get back to White River. Maybe they were going to Nebraska. I don't know how far. I can't even, because I didn't know that. I thought that the wagon took them all the way to Rosebud. But when I talked to Ruby, she said how she got the name Iron Road was because she walked on the railroad to get home.
And I wish because there are other people who claim to be descendant of Iron Road, like Joyce Tallman and them, and I don't know. The way people were connected, it's really hard to.
So this is a storm?
Yeah, the storm and the blizzard that they went through.
Oh, the blizzard, yeah.
And then, so they traveling from their camp, Bigfoot's camp, traveling from the north, going through a blizzard, and they set up camp at Wounded Knee, and then the gunfire, and so they're fleeing, and here's the railroad tracks, and here's the man and the two women that discovered Iron Road. And then this is them taking her back to, I guess, wherever, to Rosebud.
And then the first census that I found on her was after Wounded Knee. And her name was Elizabeth Iron Road.
Yep.
And she was living in the home with her grandma and grandpa.
Grandma. Yep. It says residing in the home of Elizabeth Iron Road, and it has Evelyn Hungry. Evelyn Hungry, living in the home of Elizabeth Iron Road.
No, Grandma Iron Road was residing in the home with Button and Owens Big Knife.
Owens Big Knife.
Owens Big Knife. And that was her grandma and grandpa. So that was her parents, one of her parents, either her mom or her dad. That was their parents. And next to them, in the teepee next to them, or the log, whatever, however it was set up, was William Black Thunder and his wife and his two kids. And so he was actually Grandma Iron Road's uncle, because he was the son of Button and Owens Big Knife. And see, those were her grandparents. So her mom and dad both died at Wounded Knee.
I wonder if we could get that lineage.
And one of them, we don't know which one, her mom or her dad, is William's
brother
or sister. So she said her dad told them to run from when the shooting started. Her dad told her and her mom to run, and so they started running. And her dad was shot, killed, and then her mom was running next to her, and her mom was shot. She kept running. She wouldn't stop running, and she just kept running and running and running, and pretty soon there was this Indian guy running next to her. He's trying to get her to stop, but she wouldn't stop, so he started talking Lakota to her, and he said, you need to, you can stop now. He said, I'm with 2 women, and we're hiding. He said, you'll be safe, come with me. And so she stopped running because he was speaking in Lakota, so she stopped, and she went with them. And he said, it was like a bank in that little creek.
Mm-hmm.
It was like a bank that they hollowed out, and they were hiding inside of it.
And how old was she?
14?
12 or 13. We've got to look up the year. But she said every day he would go out and bring back something for them to eat. And she said on the 3rd day, he said, come on. He was all excited when he got there. He said, come on. We found, there's this wagon going back towards Rosebud. He said, we're going to hitch a ride on this wagon. They're going to take us. So they got on that wagon, and they took them however far, and then they I guess she walked the rest away on the railroad.
And then who met her when she got to Rosebud? And who met her when she got to Rosebud?
That's all she said. That's all this Grandma knew. That's all the whole story that she told. Grandma told this to Betty, and how this was Russ's, how do you say it, wife?
Wife, yeah.
Common law wife. Betty always goes up and helps when they have the Wounded Knee ride through here. She always goes up and she helps them cook. And one morning, they lived in a trailer behind Grandma and Grandpa. They were having the ride, and so she came over and she asked Grandma to watch the kids. And she said, sure, I can watch your kids. Where are you going, you know? And she goes, well, I'm going up to help cook for the riders. She said, what riders? And she said, the Wounded Knee riders are coming through, and they're gonna stop here, and we're gonna feed them. And she said, Grandma started crying, like she got all choked up. And her voice changed, and she kind of had watery eyes. And she said, Evelyn, are you okay? What's wrong? You know, because that's her mother-in-law, sort of, you know. And so then she told her that whole story. She never told me that story. All she told me was that her grandma Ironwood ran. That's all she told me. That's all she ever told me. And she hid. She ran and she hid. And that was it. And she told Betty the whole story about her dad dying and then her mom dying. And she just kept running. Till that Indian guy stopped her and hid her. They hid her. He was with 2 other women. I always wondered who they were, you know. And so this is a total different rock from the Angie rock. This is a rock that she told me she found. And she had a story that went with it. But, because every single rock that she had in that box, which was a big shoebox, and she went through every single one of them, she had stories from. And so this one, she told me this story. And I started looking at it while she was telling me the story. And there's a woman in this rock, on this rock. Like just perfect picture, like somebody drew it on that rock. But it's just naturally made inside that rock. And so then I was like, she got done with the story, and I said, well, did you know there's a woman in this rock? And she said, what? And I said, yeah, there's a woman right here. And I showed it to her. And she was trying to see it, and she just looking at it. She goes, ooh, that's spooky. I don't want it. Take it, she said. And she said all she saw was spooky things on it. She didn't see a woman. And she just said, take it. I don't want it. And so then I was like, okay, but this is like a beautiful woman on this rock. How could she say it's spooky, you know? And so I got the rock, and she told me to take it. She told me to tell Everett hi and stuff. So I got out to the car, and I told Everett the story that she told me of this rock. So he might know it. whatever, if he remembers. But I showed him the rock, and I said, see that woman? And he's like, no. I said, there's a woman on this rock. And he couldn't see it either. And so then he said, all I see is like spooky faces. And I said, no, you're looking at it wrong. I said, there's this real pretty woman on there. There's this woman, and she's sitting. She has long braids, and her hair, you could even see the braids.
Wow.
They're both braided down real long. She kind of looks like Deanna Provost, in a way, with her long, thick hair, you know. But she had her hair braided on both sides, and then she's holding a pipe like this.
Wow.
She's holding a pipe, and it's coming up to, like she just pulled it away from her mouth because there's smoke coming out of her mouth, and there's lightning and smoke coming out of the bowl of this pipe.
Wow.
And it's all on that rock. And so then I took that rock to the Sundance. Oh no, before I took it to the Sundance, I went to my mom's house, and I showed it to her and Ronnie both before. It must have been at my house in Rapid or something, but when I took it to them at their house, like a week before Sundance, I was helping them prepare for Sundance, and I told my mom the whole story, and she's like, well, where's the rock? And I said, I brought it, it's in my bag. She goes, well, let's go look at it. So we went, Ronnie had gone to bed, it was like midnight. He had gone to bed, so her and I go into the bedroom, and I pull it out, and I said, here it is, and I showed it to her, and I showed her the woman, and she said, oh, she handed it back real fast, and she said, that woman's trying to tell you something. And she gave it back to me. And so I got it, and I had it in this hand, and she said, put it on your heart, and then hold your hand out like this. And she said, and just listen real hard with your mind. So I closed my eyes, and I was sitting upright on the couch, or on the bed, and there's nothing behind me, so I was sitting straight up. I held that rock like that, and I went like this, and all of a sudden, from the ground up, I felt this energy coming to my feet. And when it hit my feet, it went all the way up my body, like numbness. Just like, remember how whenever you fall asleep and your arm goes to sleep or your hand goes to sleep and it's numb and tingly? That's what it felt like, but it was moving. And so it started moving up, and I was still sitting there like this, and I could feel it coming real fast. I mean, I was probably sitting there like 2 minutes. I had my eyes closed, and I was holding that rock. And it hit me, and when it hit me right, like on my chest, I was falling into darkness. I wasn't in that room no more. I was falling into darkness, and when I opened my eyes, I just saw her, that woman in the rock. And I knew her. She knew me, and I knew her. And I just said, Unchi, Unchi. And I just started crying, and it wasn't tears of fear, or it was like overwhelming happiness to see her again. Because I knew her, and she knew me. And I was just crying, and my mom was sitting there watching me, and she said I was sitting straight up, I didn't fall or anything. She said I was still sitting like this. And but when they took me out of my body, they took my spirit to the spirit world. When they took me out, it's like falling into the darkness. It's like you're just falling. And then she showed me, she pointed, and there was this sweat lodge sitting there. And there was lightning coming down from the sky, and it was hitting the top of the sweat lodge, and it was blue. And she said her name was Blue Lightning Woman. And then just like that, my mom would say, Becky, are you okay? Are you okay? And I was just sobbing. And I was gone. I was back in that room, sitting there. Sitting there still, just in that same spot like this. I was sitting like this. And I was just, tears were just running down my face. And my mom said, are you okay? What's wrong? Are you okay? And I said, that's my grandma. I said, that's my Unchi. She's my Unchi. And she said, let's go smoke. You knew how she is. So I was like, I didn't even smoke at the time, but I was like, okay. So then I went to put her away. She said, put that rock down. That's what she said first thing. She said, put that rock down. Put that inga down. She said that. And so I was looking around my room like that, and here she had like Ziploc bag with material in it. So I reached in there and I pulled out this blue material and I wrapped it up and I put it. I tried to put it back in the bag it was in when I brought it, which was a little blue. It looked like a little blue backpack, but it was like a coin purse.
Mm.
And so I was trying to, and it wouldn't fit. I had all my other rocks in there too, and it wouldn't go back in there. So I wrapped it up in that blue material and I put it in my bag, and we went out and smoked. Here the next day, she said, you have to tell Ronnie. Tell Ronnie that nothing else happened that night. We went to sleep and stuff. We smoked and then we went to sleep. Next morning, I took a cigarette and I gave it to Ronnie, and I said, I have to tell you what happened last night. And I showed him that rock, I gave him that rock to look at. And I said, can you ask Grandpa, you know, what I'm supposed to do with her? Because I had her for years, ever since Grandma gave her to me. And I would take her out, show her to everybody that came to my house. I'd look at this pretty woman. Some people would see her, and some people wouldn't see her. Even Paul, I said, Paul, you got to see this woman on the rock. She looks like your mom. And he's like, I don't see it. He didn't even think it looked like his mom at all, and he didn't see the woman. So anyways, I asked Ronnie what to do. I had to pray and ask what to do. So he smoked that cigarette I gave him, and I went outside. And then he called me back in there, and here he said, she's an old medicine woman. She's my grandma, but she's like many years old, like so old. He said, I can't believe that your hair didn't turn white instantly. He said, because she's so old and she's so powerful. And he said, she told you not to show her to anyone because she came to you. And she's for you, and she'll tell you what she wants you to do. And she'll tell you when she wants you to do it. And you're not supposed to show her to anybody. And you're supposed to keep her in blue material. And you're supposed to keep her with your pipe. And so I put her in that blue material, and Ronnie was just totally shocked because Grandpa told him that she was so ancient, like she was really old, and her name was Blue Lightning, woman, right? And yeah, and so then I took her to the Synapse, and your Grandpa came, and he came straight up to me. I wasn't dancing. I was outside and praying with the dancers, but I wasn't dancing. And here he came up to me, and he said, can I see, and he said her name. So Ronnie must have told Bill or something, or my mom probably did. And so then I said, yeah, I had her in a leather pouch tied to my wrist. So I took her off and I gave it to him, and he said, I'm going to take her to the tree. I was like, okay. So he left and went to the tree and prayed and stuff, and came back and gave her back to me. And he said, nobody can tell you when to dance or if you have to dance or what she wants you to do. She'll come to you and she'll tell you when you're ready. So I still have her. I have her with my pipe bag. I keep her all. And I stopped showing her to everybody. I always check to make sure she's there. Because, I've had rocks before that had things on it and then they disappear.
Hello.
And so I made sure.
Kind of the significance to it too is sometimes they come, they'll be with you, and when they're ready to go, there is nothing you're going to do about it. They're going to go. But that was a significant thing.
He used to pretend to be a priest too.
I did. I was super spiritual, like super spiritual. All my cousins, I was the most spiritual one. My grandma wanted me to be a priest so bad. And so we're out there, and Bernie had this rock that your grandpa gave her. And that's the one that I had out last night at the sweat that I put on the altar. And it's perfectly round. Looks like a ball, like a baseball, but smaller. And smooth, round. So he gives it to Bernie. Bernie says she threw it in the trash. And she did. She threw it in the trash. Well, I ended up with it. So anyway, the rock, she throws it in the trash. Apparently, that's what she tells me. And I don't have any recollection, actually, like of the rock or anything. I didn't even know I had it. And it was, so this was in Igloo, I want to say, we'll say it was 94, maybe 95. Even 93. Anyway, early 90s. And she throws the rock away. And I live with my parents, right? You know, I'm a kid. We end up moving to Oregon, Washington area. We had stuff in storage, whatnot, and I had this big, I think of it as like a piggy bank. It's like a piggy bank, but it was a crayon, and it was like real long, and it had a top that came off and stuff.
I think I had one of those.
Yeah, and I had a big piggy bank. It was a blue one, and it had the eraser. It looked cool. I thought it was awesome, you know, back then. And the little top comes off. So we move in here, and we had brought a bunch of storage stuff. And my mom built this house in 2003, 4? 3 or 4 anyway. And we're moved in here, and I'm in my room downstairs, and I'm going through all this old stuff, right, from when I'm a kid, and, you know, just nostalgia, just looking at everything like, oh my God, you know, all this stuff. And so I'm like, oh, I wonder what's in here, right? So I open the lid, and I spill it out, and everything falls out, and the last thing that comes rolling out is that rock. And I just look, and I'm like, wow, I'm pretty sure that is a spirit rock.
That's just rolled out.
Because it's perfectly round. And I didn't know anything about it. I had no idea where the rock came from. I thought, well, I must have found it somewhere as a kid and put it in my thing, but I don't remember this. So I take it to Sweat with Bill, and he just looks at it and he said, where did you get that? And I said, I don't know. It just came to me. And he said, I gave that to Bernie. And so then I asked Bernie, and Bernie, that's when I found out Bernie threw it in the trash. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess it was meant to come to me because Bernie didn't want it, obviously. So I took it to your grandpa. He was really happy to see it, and we talked a little bit about it, and, you know, they told me to put it in a red bag. So I did. I have it in a red bag still to this day. And yeah, he's a spirit helper, and he's a buffalo man. Actually, he's a buffalo man, and his name is One White Horn. And he goes by a lot of other names too, and he's helped a lot of different people. But he chose to come to me in this realm. I guess in this life.
So this is a storm?
Yeah, the storm and the blizzard that they went through.
Oh, the blizzard, yeah.
And then, so they, traveling from their camp, Bigfoot's camp, traveling from the north, going through a blizzard, and they set up camp at Wounded Knee, and then the gunfire, and so they're fleeing, and here's the railroad tracks, and here's the man and the 2 women that discovered Iron Road. And then this is them taking her back to, I guess, wherever, to Rosebud.